This is what I was trying to show you. All right. So, I don't know if y'all heard the sound, you know what I'm saying, from the beginning, you know what I'm saying, because Smith be all on the channel. And obviously, we talking about snitching and Jewish. So, the narrative at the beginning of this video, how long was it into this video? Maybe about 5 minutes. I really ain't saying nothing, too. Like, you ain't really missed nothing. I'm just sitting there rolling a blunt. I was waiting for people to come into the chat. But the name of this video is called Snitching and Jewish. I came across a lot of information online talking about, oh, shit. Hello. Hello. Okay. I came right back when the video had came out called This Is America. It was called This Is America. Most people seen this video. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of people putting commentary out talking about, the images that was in the video for This Is America. I was talking to a brother and and he had mentioned the word Pharisees, and the reason he had mentioned it was because of all of this content that was coming out, people talking about This Is America. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, wait, like Pharisees? I was like, what do you mean Pharisees? And he was like, man, Pharisees are people basically who sit around and criticize, what at the time the Jews, you know what I'm saying? They just basically criticize, what the hell is going on? They basically just criticize everything that the Jews did. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's based, everything was like based on law. Where is that article? I'm gonna go into it. Let's go here. It's the Godspeed Nation group. Where is it at? Difference between Pharisees and Sadducees, right here. Okay. Can y'all see this? Let me see if y'all can see this. Okay, cool. Y'all can see it. All right. So what's the difference between Pharisees and Sadducees? So I was like, what the hell is a Pharisee? You know what I'm saying? So like, he was basically saying that all these people was putting out this content. I just totally fucked this whole blind up. All these people was putting out this content talking about, you know what I'm saying, This Is America, and like, you know what I'm saying, people like Professor Griff, you know what I'm saying, people like, who put out these black blogs. You know what I'm saying? He was saying, man, they all Pharisees. All they do is sit around and talk about, what people do in black culture. He was like, but they don't implement no other culture other than they own, other than sitting around talking about what the next motherfucker doing. I was like, damn, okay. He was like, that's basically what a Pharisee is. You know what I'm saying? And then, so I just, for some reason, I just kept getting more and more obsessed with this word. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a lot of what I experienced, you know what I'm saying, coming up. And as I was becoming more and more conscious, that's what I started to realize is that, like, damn, like 90% of my information basically came from Pharisees, which was like niggas sitting around doing just that, like criticizing what the next motherfucker was doing. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't, their culture was like basically shot. So, the more and more I kept looking, they had this other thing called Sadducees. And they was comparing the Pharisees to the Sadducees. And I was like, okay, like, what's the Sadducee? You know what I'm saying? The Sadducee is like a, go ahead. I'll read it for you. You come to your own conclusion. You see what I'm saying? It says the Pharisees and the Sadducees were influential Jewish sects with conflicting philosophies in regards to the implementation of the Torah. Pharisees and Sadducees had conflicting views about the role of government in the lives of Jewish citizens. The Pharisees believed that God had punished the Jews by allowing oppressive pagans like the Romans to rule over them because Jews refused to uphold the statutes of the Torah. This is why they supported the creation of distinctive laws that would keep the Jews from further offending God by adopting the lifestyles of non-Jews. While the Sadducees believed in the authority of the Torah, they were more supportive of the prevailing rulers. This is because they understood that they could benefit in political and economic sense from maintaining peaceful relations with the ruling government. According to Harding, the Pharisees were members of the middle-class Jewish families that were committed to upholding Moahic law. The Sadducees, on the other hand, hailed from Jewish aristocracy. So the Sadducees, therefore, were exposed to more secular education than the Pharisees and even acknowledged Hellenism. The main difference between the Pharisees and the Sadducees concerning understanding of the function of the Torah is Jewish society. What is this all saying, basically? Okay, you're saying, so you got two types of Jews. You got, like, it basically is like niggas. The same thing you see with niggas going on. And not just niggas, but you see, like, worldwide. This is what happens. Like, this is why when the more and more information you hear in this video, you're going to start to see a pattern here that I'm basically laying down here. And they're like, this is kind of what the Jews do. Is that they split the sides and then they don't give you the language. Like, you see what I'm saying? And they're like, you got a situation here where you got two different types of Jews. You know what I'm saying? You got the old school Jews who basically like, the government is coming into our culture and changing our culture. and we need to remain 100% Jewish. You know what I'm saying? But then you got, you know what I'm saying, the Sadducees who like, well, you know, we can work with these governments and, you know what I'm saying, and expand our Jewish faith, you know, through different cultures. You see what I'm saying? Now, most people don't really know much about Jews, and then other than like me saying this video, other than that, like most people say that, okay, the term anti-Semitic, you know what I'm saying? This is a word that gets thrown around a lot. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, you know, Farrakhan speaks about this a lot, and they're like, Farrakhan has been called anti-Semitic. A lot of politicians have been called anti-Semitic, which basically means that like speaking bad about Jews. But here's the thing, and they're like, when you understand Jews, you understand that like the difference between Pharisees and Sadducees. You see that like they got Hasidic Jews, they got Pharisees, they got Sadducees, they got Hasidic Jews. It's all different types. Jews is like basically like gangbanging. It's like it's all different types of Jews. So like you got certain Jews that's anti-Semitic they damn self. You see what I'm saying? And they're like Hasidic Jews are some are anti-Semitic, and like the Pharisees are anti-Sadducees, and like the Sadducees are kind of anti-Pharisees. I am generalizing, you know what I'm saying, for the sake of this video, but you get the point. And they're like, there's no one, you know what I'm saying. A lot of the stuff about Jewish culture is written, you know, it's kind of written in dualism. So you run into this a lot today, and they're like, you know what I'm saying, you got brothers who, you know what I'm saying, accept the Jewish faith through Christianity, not understanding, I mean, understand, you know, basically embracing Jewish culture, you know what I'm saying, through their faith and through their, you know, through their religion, and also, you know, through different types of culture. How is this possible? Well, like I said, toward the end of this video, I'm gonna tell you some shit that's gonna completely blow your mind. I'm just setting the stage. I'm just gotta get you all this information before I get you the real information. You know what I'm saying? So like, bear with me. This dude's named the Maccabees. You know what I'm saying? Maccabees was ill. Like if you follow this channel, you kind of like a Maccabee, and that like you on some hood X shit, and they're like, before we get to really even talk about the Maccabees, we gotta talk about Hellenistic Judaism. Now, bear with me. You know what I'm saying? This shit right here is like, you gotta understand what was going on at the time when the Maccabees came out. Hellenistic Judaism was a form of Judaism in an ancient world that combined Jewish tradition with elements of Greek culture. So what this means? So it's like, okay, as Greece started to like, you know what I'm saying, have an influence over, you know, and not just Greece, but it was other cultures too, like Rome, you know what I'm saying, started to have influence over Jerusalem, you know what I'm saying, they started to try to make the Jews worship their gods, you see what I'm saying, but, and it got to a point where like certain Jews, just like the, you know, the Sadducees, they were willing to work with the government, but then you had certain rabbis that was like, you know what I'm saying, Pharisees, they was like, man, fuck that shit, we ain't working with the government. So then you still see this going on today, you know what I'm saying, with black folks. So Hellenistic Judaism is kind of like, it's like kind of like what you see with Christianity. It's like, okay, American Christianity per se, and then like, mind you, black people don't really have their own religion. It's like, you know what I'm saying, like we embrace Christianity. This is all Jewish folklore. You know what I'm saying? So like all of our deities, like the Netunit and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying, or even Native American culture, their gods, their belief system, all this stuff was taken and replaced by Christianity. You know what I'm saying? You know, so this is kind of what the Jews was experiencing with Greeks. You know what I'm saying, in their time, and then like Greeks had like gods like Zeus, Helen, you know, and you know, the gods that they worship, Achilles, and you know, you read this stuff in, you know, in high school. And you know, when they got control over certain parts of Jerusalem, they would try to make the Jews worship these gods. So the Maccabees was the people who basically rebelled against this whole shit. You see what I'm saying? This was taken out of the Bible, and then like the Jews knew to take this out the Bible because it would give you this perception that I'm giving you right now. And they're like, the Maccabees. Let me go in here. Now I need y'all to bear with me. So let me make sure y'all still with me. I need y'all to bear with me on this right here, man, because like I'm gonna give you, like I said, I'm only telling you this history because you need to know this for what I'm about to tell you. So I'm about to show you a cartoon on the Maccabees. All right. So I might skip through this a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want you to watch this whole video. But you need to get this information. Hold on. Other thing too, you gotta understand that like even the Jews used to see the Greeks as like homosexuals, and then like they used to dress like homosexual. Can y'all hear? I hope y'all can hear the audio. Let me turn this up. You know what I'm saying? The Jews used to kind of see the Greeks dress as like homosexuals. It's kind of like how you see niggas dressing today, like get more and more homosexualized. So you're gonna kind of see that in here. I hope y'all can hear this. Let me turn this down. Hold on. Oh man.
It also marks the Jews' rededication of the temple, which was defiled by Hellenists at that time. This holiday is significant for both Jews and Christians alike, since the roots of both religions were preserved through God's deliverance.
The other person has a right to believe as
Like I said, offer it before you watch this shit. Just know that, like I said, all this shit was taken out of the Bible.
they wish.
This is how Hanukkah got started.
Hanukkah, meaning Feast of Dedication, commemorates the great victory of the Jewish people in Israel over King Antiochus Epiphanes, the pagan tyrant who tried to destroy Judaism in 165 BC. It also marks the Jews' rededication of the temple, which was defiled by Hellenists at that time. This holiday is significant for both Jews and Christians alike, since the roots of both religions were preserved through God's deliverance. Indeed, in commemoration of this event, Jesus went to the temple in Jerusalem to celebrate this holiday known then as the Feast of Dedication. Later, it became known as the Feast of Lights to celebrate the religious freedom that was attained and to remember the miracle of the burning oil lamps in the temple. Today, in synagogues across the world, Zechariah 4:6 is still read on this holiday as a reminder that not by might nor by power, but by the Lord's Spirit are his people delivered. To his God. It would be a holy place where men and women could feel the presence of God. And so David gathered together the finest materials he could find. And when he died, his son Solomon began to build. After 7 years, the house.
So this is Solomon's temple. If you don't know this, a lot of people believe that's where the base is. Also, too, got their whole blueprint on how to do this type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So this is Solomon's temple. They basically break it down.
Of God was complete, and the joy of the Jewish people was full. For they had looked forward to this since the time of Moses. As time went on, the temple was attacked, destroyed, and robbed of its sacred treasures. But the Jews returned and restored their holy place, for without it they were incomplete. Then came a very strange and subtle foe, Greek culture. It spread not...
I don't know if you heard what he just said. He said a whole new type of foe came. It was called Greek culture. So this is what I was trying to tell you, and that you see this in the times now, and that us as black folk here in America, you know, embracing other people's cultures. It's the same thing like the outside culture, like how in America, basically the Greeks in here will be Americans and the Jews in here will be black folk. But under the fact that black folk don't have no established religion, you know what I'm saying? Like I said in my other video, we don't have no rites or passages. We embrace Jewish religion. So like because we don't have our own religion, you know what I'm saying? You kind of see what the Greeks were attempting in this video. So I'm just...
Not only through Jerusalem, but through the entire world. Even the courtyards of the Holy Temple saw its effect.
I'll see you later. I'm late.
You can't leave now. Nasham needs a challenger. And who better?
Seconds for me to beat you.
Nason?
Alright, so peep this. Peep this right here. Peep this.
Hello, Mora.
Nason? Is that you under all that Greek cloth?
Now, don't start with me, Mora. Come, I'll walk you to the temple.
Judah Maccabee does that.
Well, today he's obviously forgotten. Come now.
Judah will come for me. And when he arrives, he'll be wearing more than his bedsheets.
Ooh, you're mean and stubborn. Judah's not coming.
If Judah...
So, Paul, I just want to pause real quick and just explain to y'all, you know what I'm saying? He's a Jew, but he's dressed like a Greek, basically like a homosexual, you know what I'm saying? And she's telling him, like, she want to go to the temple, you know what I'm saying? And he want to take her, but she's like, nah, I'm going with Judah, you know what I'm saying? But he calling her old and stubborn because she don't want to accept the Greek way. So, like, there was a time in Jewish culture where, like, if you had the perception, like how we, like, you know what I'm saying, trying to hold on to your own, you know what I'm saying, culture, you know what I'm saying, the black American trying to find out, you know what I'm saying, we don't even have our own temple, so in mind, you know what I'm saying, but, like, that's what Hudex is, you know what I'm saying, what you're trying to create. And a lot of this you see what Farrakhan, too, try to do with the Nation of Islam, but that's a whole nother dialogue. There's a lot of left and right steps with that, too. But, like, you know, to try to create a temple for black people in the U.S. and then have all black people go there, you're going to run into, like, this dude right here. And then, like, you're going to have people that got the American culture embedded in them. And, like, they showing, this is literally why they took this out the Bible, because you're going to start to develop this type of perception of, like, what the Jews was really trying to inspire for the world. Like, people started worshiping the Jews instead of, like, taking these stories and making them, you know, part of their own, you know, resurrecting their own heroes for their own culture, whether you Mexican, Puerto Rican, you know, Bolivian, around people all around the world, Russian, you know what I'm saying, Pakistani, you know what I'm saying, they got their own type of, you know, this is what happens worldwide, you know what I'm saying, all of these cultures worldwide, you know what I'm saying, but then you got the people like the Maccabees here who's trying to fight to hold on.
Judah doesn't come in the next 5 seconds, I'll roll around in the dirt.
And I'll do the same if he does come.
Done. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sorry I'm late. Oh, sorry.
Hammer.
Is that you, Huron?
Mora?
Judah, this is Huron. I used to watch him as a child.
Oh, everyone knows Huron. They say you're faster than all the Greeks put together.
You're no secret either. It's a good thing for me you don't compete.
Come to the temple with us.
No, that's not for me anymore. I'm a Greek now.
That's silly. You can never stop being a Jew.
I can try. Good to see you again, Mora. Judah?
So I hope y'all heard that. You know what I'm saying? This is a Jew, but he was letting go of his Jewish faith to become Greek. You know what I'm saying? So, like, this is the nature of, you know what I'm saying, Maccabee shit. This is straight Hudex shit, man. I hope y'all starting to get the percent. This, like I said, I'm only giving you this information because I'm taking you somewhere much further. So I'm giving you all of this up front. This is just the beginning.
So far away from God, but when I come here...
I know, Mora. I know.
Untie the oxes!
What is this?
A gift from King Antiochus.
enough of your statues in our courtyards already.
Ah, but this one is different. It's of the king himself.
Is King Antiochus a god now?
He has declared it so. Perhaps you'll find this less amusing. We're putting it up in your temple.
Get out.
So you had this type of shit going on. You had the government, trying to influence spiritual dominance over the Jews, and there was a struggle there between, the government and the Jews.
Do they? So, they refuse, do they? Well, it's time to force the Jews to do what all other nations have done willingly. From this day forth, I, King Antiochus, decree that every Jew who will not bow down and accept the Greek gods shall die.
Or Jew that. Jew. Greek or Jew. Jew. But I have accepted your ways long ago. Surely you see that.
Pledge your soul to the Greek gods or die.
Never.
I pledge my honor to the Greek gods. I pledge my honor.
Get up then. You'll now be a Greek soldier.
I'm honored, sir.
I warn you, though. Never betray your new life, or you'll lose it.
Oh, let me die then.
No! We must get father and our brothers and leave.
The temple sign. The temple.
The temple is worthless if we're all dead. We need your help to stay alive.
So you see this, they basically ransacked the whole temple and took over, the Greeks basically took over and forced the Jews to start worshiping the Greek gods. And this is literally what you see in America right now, when we don't have no knowledge of self, we don't have no knowledge of our own gods, we worship in Jewish gods. So I'm starting to depart, it's starting to turn, like I said, this is just the beginning. So follow me. So they erected
Watch your ropes. Got some slack in the back end.
So they erected the giant Greek statue in the middle of the temple.
Bow down.
Look on me and hear us. Let this statue serve as a reminder that Zeus sees all. Zeus hears all. Zeus knows all. To all Jerusalem, I say, look at your new God, Zeus!
Okay, so you see they made them bow down and worship their God. This is literally what happened to black folk. But if you got a Jewish,
Will we ever?
when you get a Jewish perspective, you can see how black folks don't have these stories. And they're like, this is literally why this was taken out the Bible. And you can see how if Jewish people have this perspective and they can look at the other cultures who are not doing what's about to happen right here, you can see their
See
perspective
Jerusalem again, Judah. When will we go back to the temple?
Soon. I hope.
Right. It's only a matter of time before the soldiers find us. We'll be killed like all the rest.
Leave.
Will come.
Mora?
Mora,
Oh, bless you, Nathan.
I'm sorry this had to happen, Mora. I don't know what to say.
It's all right. Judah will come for me.
I hope you're right.
Go.
Penalty for keeping Jews in your house is death.
Well, then you better leave before we both get in trouble.
I am a Greek!
As am I.
I've got my eye on you, Nathan.
So he is considered like what you consider Uncle Tom. And then like you see like a black cop. So like he is like literally the essence of a black
clubs.
cop.
We'll be cut to pieces.
We still have this mountain.
That's right. When we see him coming, we'll pick up the mountain and drop it on him.
Close. Come on. Remember, the mountain gives us a position of advantage. You must keep that position. Come at me with everything you've got. Go!
So they working with the best. Come on.
To worship in the home. My soul.
Wow. Right, so she got caught. Hold on, man, skipping. She got
Thank
caught.
heavens it's you.
I found one! Over here!
You're on. Don't.
Boom! Now, this is a Jew snitching on his elder for worship at the temple. Now, pause. The name of this video is called Snitching and Jewish. So, starting to tie together here. Principles of what snitching, like in the hood, we say stop snitching. You see what I'm saying? Now, and Jews have a name for this shit that we don't have a name for. And there's a common culture here. And, you see what I'm saying? Black people say stop snitching, and they make us look like fucked up. But like Jews literally have the same exact concept that dates all the way the fuck back to the days of Maccabees. We don't know this shit. And mind you, like, this is only the beginning. I'm only starting to, the third eye starting to open up. Just follow me here. Follow me.
Do this.
Huron, in the name of King Antiochus, step outside.
In the name of God, do what's right.
Quick over here. Run.
You're one of us.
I am a Greek! I lost them. 2 men. They went that way.
Let's get them.
See that? That's eventually what you're gonna get when you're on her ex. You're gonna be like that. You're like, man, I'm a god body.
Right? But just one? It could be. It's Huron.
Some think he's preparing to lead his little band against us.
Take as many soldiers as you like. Take whatever you need. But kill them all!
It's hopeless.
No, don't lose hope, men. We must fight.
If we run now, at least some of us will live.
Let's go. Run. Run from what? Weak and wicked men who worship gods of stone? We are sons of the living God. A mighty God who divided the sea for Moses. A loving God who saved Daniel from the jaws of a lion. Do you think God loved our fathers more than us?
Pause right here. Just want to let y'all motherfuckers know, while you hearing the horns blow, we're talking about the age of Aries and the horn and the ram and the narrative, and it did not go down like this. Trust me, there was no bunch of horns and people sitting around, you know what I'm saying, making music. Like, this is romanticized, this is drama. This is what Jews do. In the beginning, when they say the words was with God and God controlled the word, this is what Jews literally do, is that they control the narrative. They make these stories, and that they control the life and the death, the God and the devil, the good and the evil, the right and the wrong, the betrayal and the friendship. Like, they've mastered what what, you know, that's what we call the bastard language, and that they able to tell these stories and capture, you know, the morals of the character. You see what I'm saying? So, like, when you're watching this, mind you, this is a cartoon, but this is based on true events. But you see the Jewish influence with the horns and the romanticizing of the, you know, of what he's saying right here. So I'm saying, they're tying it into God, they're tying it into their belief system, and like, this is literally what us as black folk in America, we don't have this. You know what I'm saying? It might be not just us as black folks, it's literally people worldwide. And like, you go to Mexico, it's the same thing. Like, all of their heroes have been hijacked and replaced with, you know what I'm saying, with stories like this. But this story, particular story, was taken out of the Bible for that, because it's gonna make you start to question all of this, exactly what I'm saying. And then, like, you got, you know, Jewish culture permeating all types of different places all over the country. You know, all over the world. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? But like, they telling them only what they want them to know, as far as, you know, the Bible and the Torah. You know, they even use Christianity as a way of controlling. You know what I'm saying? But that's coming later. So I just dropped some shit.
Has he lost his power to save? No. Then rise up, ye men of Israel, and put on the faith of your fathers. For that is all that stands between us this day and the temple of our Lord.
Yeah! Gather all the weapons. Fall!
Hurry, in here.
Don't lose your ground. Forward!
It's no good, sir. We should retreat until we can find a better position.
Send every man. Full attack.
We'll never break through.
All soldiers, attack!
Get ready, men.
On my command.
Set. Now!
Get them!
A Jew. Always a Jew.
May it always be so.
The temple of our Lord, Jerusalem.
Judah! I knew you'd come.
So did I. Never doubted it for a moment.
I sing the praise of Him.
rededication of the temple began. And although there was only enough pure oil to burn for 1 day, the menorah stayed lit for 8 days until new oil could be found. To commemorate this miracle, a festival of lights is celebrated every year to remind the people of God's love and mercy in saving Israel and reclaiming the Holy Temple.
So these are the Maccabees. Now, I'm sure you've heard of Hanukkah, but like, how the hell you heard of Hanukkah, but you ain't never heard of the Maccabees? Well, that was intentional. And then, like I told you, this was taken out of the Bible. There was a book of Maccabees that was literally taken out of the Bible, but you still see the Hanukkah influence, but you never really knew what that was. You see what I'm saying? So, like, there's a reason for this. And that, like I said, this is only the beginning. I'm only giving you, certain information because it's all leading somewhere else. So when you start to understand this, you understand that, like, okay, from a Jewish perspective, outside culture coming in, permeating Jewish culture was, overran by the Maccabees. So the Jews have this story. Us as black folks, we don't have this story. And they're like, we have stories similar, like, like I said, the closest kind of thing you got to is like, Malcolm X, Farrakhan, Fred Hampton, revolutionaries who basically tried to, protect the black conscious mind. Not just the black conscious, but it's like really the common folk, like the people. You know what I'm saying? Like the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, even the Irish people. You know what I'm saying? Even though, believe it or not, even the white people, like the common white man. Like, you know what I'm saying? And like, this is what certain aspects of the perception of Jewish culture would, like, they would permeate America. They would like literally blend in with American culture. So like, you couldn't tell the difference between a white person or a Jewish person. You know what I'm saying? So like, Farrakhan has a belief that, okay, like, Jews use this as a way to, like, put white people at the top and black people at the bottom. You know what I'm saying? They use white people, like Jews basically use white people as, the control system over, indigenous people in lands all over, including not just black America, but like including other places like Russia. You know what I'm saying? Even places where like indigenous white people rule. Like same thing, like Jews would attract themselves to like Nordic whites, blonde hair, blue eye, like a certain type of white people that they would like influence and bring them into the culture of the politics. Not just the politics, but the banking system and like the secret parts of Jewish culture. You see what I'm saying? So like all of this was done throughout years, and they're like, and this, you see this in the Bible as well. Like when Abraham was, Abraham was, in the Bible, Abraham had a, hold on, I don't want y'all reading ahead yet. Abraham had he had to say this, his wife Sarah was his sister. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, they was pretending they was Egyptians, but they was really Jews. You know what I'm saying? This is really, you know what I'm saying? This is like the beginning of the Jewish culture. Like, this is what they do. Like, they go into other places and, partake in their culture. They may even partake, like a Jew will go to a Christian church. You know what I'm saying? You'll never ask them, well, man, why you hate Jesus? You know what I'm saying? Why don't y'all worship Jesus? You know what I'm saying? But like a Jew will go to church. They'll go to Christian because they have a different perspective. They can go into these places like that and, you know what I'm saying, and blend in, and you won't understand nothing about their culture because they have a way that they looking at you. It's like, man, you sleep. You a Gentile. Like, you are outsider. You're a beast. Like, you're part of the matrix. Like, they have this perception. You will never know this. You know what I'm saying? And then, like, a lot of Christians who worship Christ, you know what I'm saying, they partake and have friends with Jews, but they don't know, like, Jews is really, like, trolling them. You know what I'm saying? But am I, like, this is this, like I said, I'm not, talking down on Jews. I'm just telling you, like, this is literally perception. And, like, Jews look at Christians and, like, the rest of the world as Gentiles, and they look at themselves as, like, the chosen people. So, like, it kind of forces a dynamic that's, very polar. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, this plays out in a lot of different ways. But before I get into that, I want to break down, you know what I'm saying, the concept of the Maccabees, you know what I'm saying, reclaiming the throne, you know what I'm saying, what that did for Jerusalem, and it able to, like, it allowed them to basically revolutionize all of their belief systems. Like we was talking about Hellenistic Judaism, all of this stuff got erased. You see what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't no more Hellenistic Judaism. It was, they reclaimed you can read all of this stuff, but there's neither Jew nor Greek. You know what I'm saying? So, like, this is stuff that black people today that we go through, and then, like, we don't have no temple for ourselves, so we adopt, the Jewish, / Christian faith. You see what I'm saying? Like, but we don't understand that the synchronicity behind it is not the worshiping of the deities itself. It's the story itself that's supposed to inspire the Christ in today's times. Like, you know what I'm saying? But they control the word. They control the dialogue. They control the story. So they can make you go into a euphoric state of mind, you know what I'm saying, through the words. Like, they're going to send you into that consciousness, that euphoric, basically, you're going to come, you know what I'm saying, like off religion, you know what I'm saying, or a drug, or like a high, you're going to get high off religion because they control the words. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they say they're the chosen people. So when you start introducing Greek culture into that, it gets blended. So like, this is literally why they wanted to get rid of that whole dynamic. You know what I'm saying? So you start to see, why it was important for them to do this. So now you got to understand. There's another concept too. We were talking to before about where is it? The difference between Pharisees and Sadducees. I'm gonna take you back here real quick, just to break this down. And that it was saying that the main difference between Pharisees and Sadducees is concerned with the understanding of the function of the Torah in Jewish society. The function is understanding the function of the Torah in Jewish society. That's the main difference between Pharisees and Sadducees. Leaders among the Pharisees referred to as rabbi, while the most Sadducees operated as priests and were members of the Sanhedrin. So it's like, okay, the Pharisees are rabbis and the Sadducees are priests in what is called the Sanhedrin or the Sanhedrin. What is the Sanhedrin? The Sanhedrin initiative. Let's go into this. Now, what the hell is this? This is, within Judaism, the Sanhedrin is seen as the last institution which commanded universal authority among Jewish people in the long chain of tradition from Moses until the present day. Since its dissolution in 358 CE, there has been no universally recognized authority within Jewish law. There's no universally recognized authority within Jewish law. That's BS, personally. We're going to talk about that later. There was one greatest scholars of the Middle Ages, arguably one of the widest known scholars of the Jewish people, influenced by rationalists, blah, 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 blah. So it's right. Now, this is ill that in 2004, a group of rabbis claiming to represent varied communities in Israel undertook a ceremony in the Tiberias where the original Sanhedrin was disbanded, which they reestablishes the body according to the proposals of the Maimonides or something and the Jewish legal rulings of Rabbi Yosef Karo. So what does this mean? It means that there was an old school Jewish kind of group of, it was a sect of Jewish priests and people that worked with the government, worked with local governments to create the laws that was going to be implemented on the people. These were the Sanhedrin. So this is how Torah law, like Jewish law, became law that was government on people in local communities. So like the Jews would go to America, they would go over here to Poland, they would go over here to Russia, and like they would go to the churches, they would go to the banks, they would get these people on they part of their initiative, but they had their own set of people that they would report to. That was called the Sanhedrin. You see what I'm saying? So like they would go out in society and blend in with society, but they would go back to a hive that was all like Jewish people that had their own perception of things. You see what I'm saying? So they began to judge over Jewish issues within within other governments. So like you see how the Greeks, and like you were saying, so like if you was in Greece, they had the Sanhedrin in Greece. You know what I'm saying? So it was a bunch of Jewish, like a Jewish court inside that was outside of regular Greek law. And like you know what I'm saying, some people already know this because like this is literally what happened with Christ. And like when Christ had two courts. A lot of people don't know this. Like when Christ went up to be tried, he didn't straight go to Pontius Pilate. He went before the Sanhedrin. You see what I'm saying? So the Sanhedrin. You see what I'm saying? So that's what this is. So we're gonna watch this real quick to get a better understanding of the Sanhedrin. And then like they brought Christ before them.
Caiaphas that he should be found like a common thief. It's most unseemly, sir.
So you see, this is a Sanhedrin court. So you see, they brought him in. It was like, man, hold on, he's not a criminal. Let's take the cuffs off him. We all Jewish people. So all of these basically Pharisees or Sadducees, they come from different communities all throughout the land. So saying they all come here to basically try Jesus to see, okay, whether or not they should hand him over to Greek. They don't want to snitch on him, basically. Like, you see what I'm saying? Just go back to the name of this video, Snitching and Jewish. So, like, they got a court that a lot of people don't get this perception. And they're like, before they handed him over to the government, they had their own court that they tried Jesus in. You see what I'm saying? They didn't want to send. They was like, there's a word for this in Judaism. Like, if you're a Jew, you do not hand over another Jew to the government unless you go through some shit like this. They got their own set of court law because they inside of the law. A lot of people don't know this. They can, like, Jews, everywhere they go, they got their own court inside of that own place where they have their own trial before it goes over into the main government. And it started here. And this is a prime example of what the fuck I'm talking about. And this is why this is literally what Jesus was trying to expose about the Jews. You know what I'm saying? So check this out.
Jesus, it is not our intention to treat you as a criminal, but we want you to explain to this assembly the nature of your teachings. What is this doctrine you and your disciples are spreading through Judea?
I have spoken openly for all the world to hear. I have taught in the synagogues and in the temple. I have said nothing in secret. So, why do you ask me? Ask those who heard me. They are my witnesses.
Caiaphas, I've heard him preach. I find nothing in his doctrine which denies the basic principles of our faith.
Rabbi, we fail to understand the meaning of many of your sayings.
For instance, there are witnesses who say that you claim that you could destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days.
No one could rebuild the temple in 3 days. What he said must have some symbolic meaning. Come, I'm sure I heard.
Oh, now you gotta say, Jews don't believe Christ is the Messiah. Christ said he is the Messiah. You see what I'm saying? So, you see how they talking about the symbols and stuff like that because they understand priest interpretation. You see what I'm saying? And they trying to say, okay, hold on, man. Like, we got a council here, and you kind of preaching outside of the council. Like, you see what I'm saying? Now go back to what we were talking about before, just about the Maccabees. The Maccabees, same type of, it was basically the same thing. It was like, man, keeping stuff according to the core cultures of Jewish faith and what it means to be a Jew. So I'm saying that's what they all claim. These are more Sadducees, and they kind of work with the government. They kind of work with the state more so than like, you know, outlaw rabbis or, you know, like Pharisees. But it is both. You know what I'm saying? But like a lot of these rabbis get tax breaks, stuff like that from the government, you know what I'm saying, for working with the government. You know what I'm saying? Because they control the law, they control the minds and the morals of the people. You see what I'm saying? So Jesus was all about, like, you ain't got to be a Pharisee, you ain't got to be a Sadducee. It's just about, you know, loving and forgiving and, you know, forgive your enemy, loving your enemy. You know what I'm saying? Basically understanding that people is flawed. So this kind of went against everything that they stood for. So they was like, man, hold on, Christ, you can't be coming out here saying this. You see what I'm saying? So they was like, man, we don't want to hand you over to, you know, to the government, but like, you can't be running around saying this stuff that you're saying. And he was basically trying to show them that they was hypocrites and that their time was coming to an end. You see what I'm saying? And it like, this is what a lot of people misinterpret about Christ. And it like, it ain't about worshiping Christ. It's understanding what Christ did. You see what I'm saying? That's why, you know, a lot of Jews don't consider Christians as Christians because they're not doing what Christ did.
I heard him say he could rebuild it again in 2 days. 3 days, 4 days, you hear? Witnesses can't even agree.
How can we remember every detail? There was a riot, which Jesus himself provoked, but for which the Romans will hold us responsible.
The riot was provoked by Barabbas.
Romans don't need an excuse. We know what they have done to our people. All of us here can remember the occasion not so many years back when over 1,000 of our people were nailed to the walls of Jerusalem because there were not enough scaffolds to satisfy the Romans' lust for blood. None of us, I'm sure, wants to give any more victims to Pontius Pilate than we can prevent.
Of course not, Joseph. We're all agreed upon that. As Caiaphas has said, this is not a trial. We left our homes. We came here tonight hoping that Jesus of Nazareth would explain to us the purpose of his mission and help to heal the divisions in our community.
Brother, we have often heard that you've come to bring love and brotherhood. I beg you, bring peace to our gathering tonight.
Tell me.
Here we go. Here we go.
It has been said that you proclaimed yourself the Son of God. I ask you now, in the name of the Eternal, are you the Messiah, the Son of God?
I am.
You know you done fucked up, right? You know you done fucked up, right?
And you shall see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power of God.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
So yeah, that didn't end well. So we all know where that went after that. So so here we see a situation where the Jews set up an internal court for Jesus before they handed him over to the the main course. Now you look at situation with black folk, not just black folk. You look at around the world. You look at Mexicans. You look at you know what I'm saying. All over the world you see outside influence, outside government, but you don't see like a two court system like this. You'll see implemented in no other culture around the world other than Jews. You see what I'm saying? And then like we talking about snitching and Jews. So like it's really intrigued me. So I started doing more research on the Sanhedrin initiative and the guys who basically went and tried to start it back again. You know what I'm saying? Because they had their own court system, and I found out more and more about that. And that was this link right here. So you see, there was a Sanhedrin initiative launched in Tiberias. Mind you, when I first had Googled this, the first two articles that I looked, they had taken this down off the internet, and they're like, this was the third link that, like, if you Google this, there's very little information that you're gonna find on this on the internet at all. Like, this is very rare information. You know what I'm saying? So in 2004, a unique ceremony, probably the second of its kind in the past 1,600 years, is taking place in Tiberias today. The launching of the Sanhedrin, the highest Jewish legal tribunal in the land of Israel. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down. Dog acting crazy. The Sanhedrin, a religious assembly that convened on one of the holy temple chambers in Jerusalem, comprised of 71 sages and existed during the Tanaitic period from several decades before the Common Era, roughly until 425 CE. Details of today's ceremony are still a little sketchy, but the organizers announced their intention to convene 71 rabbis who have received special rabbinic ordination as specified by the Maimonides. Attempt to reconvene the Sanhedrin was made several centuries ago in Tzvat. So you see this, what you just saw what happened with Christ eventually fell apart, but you see in 2004 they're trying to put that back together. Now this was in the book of Numbers. Like if you read I believe in the book of Numbers chapter 11, what was it? Let's go here. I think it was 11:13. Let me see. Numbers 11:13. Let me see. No, this ain't it. Let's see. Numbers 11. What is it? No, man. Hold on. 11:13. Let me see. Man, let me see. Numbers 11. Let's do like this. See, it says, bring me 70 of, see right here, Numbers 11:16. It says, bring me 70 of Israel's elders who are known to you as leaders of the officials among the people. Have them come to a tent meeting and may them stand beneath you. I will come and speak to you there. So you see in Numbers 11:16, this is where God told Moses to set up the Sanhedrin. You see what I'm saying? So it's like they was trying to figure out, okay, who gonna eat what and who gonna, this is straight Agent Aries shit. And like they was trying to, lay the laws of the culture down. You see what I'm saying? So they basically set up a council. And this is when the instructions, or when it was called the Sanhedrin. You see what I'm saying? That's the same people who tried Christ. You know what I'm saying? So this, like I said, this bandit they tried to put together back in 2004. So the more and more I kept looking, I was like, okay, so you got the Sanhedrin initiative, but I kept looking more and more about like the internal court system of the Jews. And I've heard a lot of times people say they had a Jewish lawyer. You know what I'm saying? And I really didn't understand what that meant. And then like until I really started to understand these concepts as far as like how they really control the law, and not the law, but the heart of the law, like the morals of the law, like and how like within the law they call the judicial branch, and hence the word judicial. In that these are the people who write and literally write and change the law. So it's like they at the heart of all of the laws around the whole world is Jewish faith, Jewish belief system. You see what I'm saying? It's what they call judicial branch. So it's like I say, the heart of morality of the law. So Sanhedrin is basically the rabbis who work with the governments who help form these type of laws. You start to see what I'm saying. So let's see. Hold that thought. Sanhedrin. Okay, so let's do like this. Let's do this. So now that we've got all of this basis down pat, right? Now we're gonna really start to turn this shit up, okay? So let me go. Let's go here. Wait, no. Oh, wait for it. Okay, here we go. Y'all ready? Okay, here we go. I'm about to really turn this up another notch. We're gonna go to Google. We're gonna type in these words: the Beth Den. Beth Den. Okay. What is the Beth Den? The Beth Den is the closest you're gonna get to the Sanhedrin. So it says here, what is the Beth Den? The Beth Den is the house of judgment. It is a rabbinical court of Judaism. In ancient times, it was the building block of the legal system in the biblical land of Israel. Today, it is invested with legal powers in a number of religious matters, matter of litigation, both in Israel and in Jewish communities in the diaspora, where its judgments hold varying degrees of authority in matters specifically regulated to Jewish religious life. So, antiquity, historical values, present situation. In Orthodox Judaism, a ben death consists of 3 observant Jewish men who at least one was widely knowledgeable in Jewish law, to be capable of instructing other members in any matters of halakha relevant to the case being heard. In progressive communities, women may serve on the ben death as well. In practice, a permanent ben death will consist of 3 rabbis, while a ben death of an occasional matter, such as handing religious vows, need not consist of rabbis. A ben death which handles cases involving complex monetary issues or large community organizations requires judges who require an additional samika, which enables them to participate in such a ben death and educate complex cases involving highly technical points of law. So a ben death is required for the following matters: a get, which is a divorce; kosher, which is certification for restaurants, food, examination. You know what I'm saying? Basically, certain types of inspectors. Conversion, if you want to convert over to Judaism. You know what I'm saying? Supervising the building of maintenance of mikvah, determination of personal status. So you start to see, okay, like these are the matters where Jews have their own court that they go and handle their own business and their own shit that goes on here. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't go cross over into American law. They try to keep, not necessarily American law, but this is worldwide. No matter whether it's in Russia, whether it's in fucking South America, whether it's in Australia, wherever the Jews is at, they have their own internal court system called the Beth Din, where they go and they have their own court. You see what I'm saying? So right. So this is basically a Beth Din. So when I kept looking more and more into this, which totally had blown my mind when I started to see it, I started to wait. Where is it at? 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 Hold on, what? Hold on, where is it at? Hold on. A Beth Din is sometimes used within the Orthodox Jewish community to resolve civil disputes, calling for civil cases to be resolved by religious instead of secular courts. Modern Western societies increasingly permit civil disputes to be resolved by private arbitration. You see this? Civil disputes to be private arbitration, enabling religious Jews to enter the agreements providing for an arbitration by a particular Beth Din where the independent of dispute. By this device, the rules, procedures, and the judgment of the Beth Din are accepted and can enforce blah, 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 blah. Where is the... What? How did I... What? Where we at, man? Hold on. Hold on, what the fuck? What? I just read this earlier. Hold on, man. They were saying in certain situations where people was having sex with kids, and they would handle it in a Beth Din. It wouldn't even go to court. This is a lot where I can't even find it. It was somewhere in this article. Like a lot of what you see what happened with Harvey Weinstein, he's a Jew. So they were trying to keep it under wraps. Like this is why a lot of that shit in Hollywood don't get reported, and the shit get handled in a Beth Din. They don't even make it to court. You see what I'm saying? Jews have this type of shit going on. So that's why you see a lot of shit make sense the way it do. Am I getting to you here? All right. I don't even know what it was. It said it somewhere. Man, I don't know. I'll just do like this. Let's do like this. So, kept looking more and more into shit, right? Then I came up with this. crcweb.org. Right? This is it? Right. So this is the Chicago Rabbinical Council. I was like, what the hell is it? So, Beth Din. This is Chicago. It says the largest regional Orthodox organization of North America is the CRC, a non-for-profit offering a variety of Jewish services, including kosher product supervision and kosher certification. Kosher certification is available around the world throughout the year. They're talking about kosher. You see what I'm saying? Doing meats and stuff like that. This is where, if you wanted to do something like that, you would call it the Beth Din. So, where is it? Where is it? What is it? Is it over? Right. Hold on. Wait for it. What was it at, man? Let's see. / Beth Din overview. Let's do like that. / Beth Din overview.php. Let's do like that. All right, here we go. So here's the Beth Din, the CRC Beth Din in Chicago. The Beth Din is a rabbinical court. It is guided by and led by Rosh Beth Din, the world-renowned Torah scholar Rabbi Judea Dov Schwartz. This guy. So, and another rabbi, these guys are attorney and a jurist, is the Athbendi chief of court. The Beth Din hears and resolves cases including Jewish law and financial disputes. It responds to all queries related to the practice and theory of our way of life. It is Jewish getting divorces, certificates, conversions, certificates attesting to the status of a Jewish person and are internationally recognized and accepted by Israel Rabban. Throughout the ages, Jewish communities have settled their internal differences and quarrels within the confines of their own borders. See that? See that? Throughout the ages, Jewish communities have settled their own internal differences and quarrels within the confines of their own borders, primarily by men and women appearing before a Beth Din, a court of rabbis who were experts in Jewish law. The decision that was binding upon litigations was based upon the principles and justices of fairness and the ultimate goal of preserving peace within the society. Many years ago, Chicago Rabbinical Council created a Beth Din to function in this field, and the dignity of Chicago Jewry was splendidly enhanced by this establishment. Are you following me? So I kept going, doing more and more digging. I was like, okay, who's this rabbi? I looked him up. Rabbi Jedilia Dov Schwartz, this guy. So I started listening to what he was talking about. So we're going to go into
The
his
title of this whole conference. If you know something, say something. The question of knowing something and saying something, where we do know that in Jewish law and conduct, as it's come down to us, speech, the use of language, how you deal with it, and speaking about other people is a very great responsibility. And I don't have to go into at length again that there's this classic sefer, which became so famous that the author was always known by the name of the sefer, of the book. Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen of Radin of blessed memory.
Pause. Don't get too lost in what he's saying here. I want to bring it back real quick. Follow me. I know it's an old dude kind of tuning out. Follow. Don't go. Follow me. You talking about, he said, if you know something, say something. You talking about snitching in Jewish. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is literally the as we get into the essence of what we talk about, and here's the principality on whether or not, if you're a Jew, whether or not you should snitch or not. You see what I'm saying? Whether or not this should go to the American court system or should we keep it inside our own closed ranks. This is what he's speaking.
Known as a saint and sage of the Jewish people, who lived approximately almost a century, from the late 1830s to 1933, when he passed away, wrote this sefer in the last part of the 19th century. Chofetz Chaim means the will of somebody who wants to live, taken from a verse in Tehillim, which we say in the morning prayers, in the morning davening on Shabbos. It's in that particular verse of 34, Lamed Daled, Mihu Isha Chofetz Chaim, who wants to have life, is the main thing is, Ohev Yomim, he loves days, Netzor L'shoncho Mirah. Guard your tongue from evil. How do you guard your tongue? How do you control your tongue? How are you to address other people, speak about other people? In what context may you say certain things about other people which might be derogatory, demeaning, although they are true? Lashon hara. The evil tongue does not mean saying a false statement. It's the truth. We know that somebody is a rascal or so forth. When can you talk about that rascal to other people? When is it allowed? When is it permissible? Or you know somebody has done certain things. Now, why I'm speaking about this, and this is not the place to talk about all of the Lashonis of Lashon Hara, because I might be guilty myself in this public podium of doing that. You never know where the power of speech is. But what I've come against in I would say, in rabbinic practice, when it comes to matters dealing with the question of abuse or so forth, you start probing. Someone tells you something, and people say, oh, I can't talk about that. That's Lashon Hara. That'll be a use of the evil tongue. I can't even speak about it. And yet, sometimes there is a situation where, well, what do? Do you report it? Do you say something about it? You know, there are people in certain communities, and I've been in some of those communities, where you couldn't even talk about such a thing because, oh, that's Lashon Hara. Or in general terms, it's just gossip. It's tale-bearing or so forth. But when it comes to something that if you know, using the title, if you know something, if you know that a certain individual is abusing a child, or so forth, and it's reasonable to understand that that's happening. It's not just some mere rumor, because rumors, accepting rumors that are just set off by people that are irresponsible, that's a prohibition. You shouldn't listen to all what we call hearsay. But if you have reasonable, call it a very reasonable doubt about somebody is abusing somebody, using a child especially, and it could be that it's beating the child. That's not just sexual abuse, over beating the child. And we'll talk about a certain tshuva response, responsum, written by illustrious Rav in Eretz Yisrael about such a situation. That's also abuse. If you know about it, you have to report it. You have an obligation to do that. Now, years ago, I wrote an article in a magazine called 10. 10 is abbreviation Torah.
Pause real quick. I just want y'all to understand that he's putting this information out in 2011 because you have to ask yourself, why would this be a topic that he's talking about? Why would he be talking about this topic in 2011? Because you got to figure at the time there was probably people using Jewish law and using, the things we were talking about earlier, as far as not snitching on each other in Jewish, as a way to cover up what they were doing. This is obviously why he's speaking on this topic, and he's basically saying it's not right, and y'all need to stop that. So obviously this was going on for years. And so he, this is a judge. Basically, I just showed you, he's like the head of the whole Beth Din in Chicago. He's like a governor / like czar almost, of Jewish. So he's seeing these type of things. He's seeing this. He's seeing this repeated. He just told you he's going to communities and he can't even talk about, people doing sexual abuse and stuff like that because they using Jewish law as a way not to speak on it. Because if you speak on it, it's basically like snitching. You see what I'm saying? So he's trying to say that he's basically declaring that you can no longer do that only in 2011. I hope you're following this.
Educational Network, which is published by the Educators Council of America, which has its support and direction from Yeshiva University. So I was asked to write an article about abuse as far as from an educational standpoint. Let's say you have a teacher in a school. Child comes in and he comes in with a black eye, looks injured, looks depressed, and the teacher becomes aware that this child is abused. What is he supposed to do? How should he react about that? So with that, I go, it's not just a question of saying something bad about parents or about the people surrounding that child or so forth, but it's a question, how do you report it and how do you respond? So the second aspect of what I've included in my interpretation is here, something which is the major consideration generally in the general Orthodox community, talking about all streams. I'm not going into particulars. I'm not talking about a place, whether it's in Williamsburg, Borough Park, it could be Teaneck, it could be the 5 towns, Flatbush, all these places, Muncie, or wherever there are different very densely populated areas of Jews that are very observant of all aspects of Torah, day schools, and so forth. What is the teacher supposed to do? Should he report it?
Did you hear what he just said? I hope y'all hearing it. He just told you, he said, man, it's basically Jews that infiltrated all of, saying that this is, he said it's Jews basically in all of these places who then infiltrated all these areas and daycares and, places where kids is getting abused and they don't want to report the shit because they confused about Jewish law. You see what I'm saying? He's saying, he's telling you that. Listen to what the fuck you see what I'm saying, that they trying to use, they don't even want to use the internal court. You see what I'm saying? He's telling you this.
To the principal, and not only what does the principal do? So the reporter go to the parents, report it to the authorities. So at that time, I mentioned something which is controversial in the rabbinic world, but it is a very important psak, rabbinic decision, uttered by one of the great, reliable poskim, decisors from the time of the early 20th century, the God Rabbi Yechiel Michal Epstein of blessed memory, who wrote a classic sefer on Jewish law on the Shulchan Aruch called the Aruch HaShulchan.
I hope y'all just saw the Masonic when he did like this, and then he said it. He went like this. He did a Masonic symbol right before he demonstrated the law. You see what I'm saying? This is what we were talking before about Sadducees, difference between Sadducees and Pharisees, and like Sadducees work with the government. A lot of the Sadducees go through Masonic indoctrination. Not necessarily they're Mason, but they know the poses, they know the it's more affiliated with Masonry. Like you kind of see this when you go to Roman Catholic churches, and like they got these huge big churches with the checkered floors. You know what I'm saying, with the Masonic symbols embedded into the Christianity ways. Now this is more Sadducees, and they're like, even though the church and state is separated, the church is still working with the state, and they getting certain tax breaks and stuff like this. So like, he just did a Masonic symbol basically before he demonstrated a certain Jewish law. But you got to consider this is Jewish law that's mixed in with the state. It's not necessarily how traditional Jews see it. That's why he said it was revolutionary, and that like traditional rabbis see this as some Sadducee shit instead of some Pharisee shit. This is another reason too why you got to understand what Farrakhan was talking about when you say anti-Semitism. You got to remember that like Jewish culture is not one. Like so when you talk about speaking bad about the Jews, there's so many sects inside the Jews that like when you really break it down, you start to see that like how they're able to use outside enemies as a common, you know, as a common goal. Like they'll come together on people who come, like me, basically me for putting out this video. They'll call me anti-Semitic. You know what I'm saying? But like I'm not even talking about Semitic Jews. I'm talking about like Pharisees and Sadducees. I'm not even talking about Semitic Jews. And believe it or not, that's what I'm trying to tell you. That like certain Sadducees and Pharisee Jews are anti-Semitic. You got Hasidic Jews. Hasidic Jews, it's the same thing, and then like they not Semitic Jews. You see what I'm saying? So like when you really break it down, you can see like the way that the narrative is controlled, and like he was talking about the use of the language and the way that things are said, and this is exactly how certain laws are formed, and that your whole belief system starts to, you know, and the way it's embedded into your religion and your dopamine receptors in your brain as far as God and evil and right and wrong. You know, it's all permeated through the language, through Jewish language, Jewish translation of language and Jewish translation of culture. The Maccabees was literally fighting against these exact principles, and like your whole language, your whole belief system, believe it or not, is basically Jewish. The Maccabees, even though they were Jewish, they revolted against these types of forces that was imposing this belief system on them. You know what I'm saying? This is why this was taken out of the Bible, because if you take it out of the Bible, you're going to come to these same conclusions with basically what Christ was saying the same thing. And he was basically telling the Jews like, man, all this is, we're moving into a new age, the age of Pisces, where like he was going to be that light. He was going to be that reference. You see what I'm saying? So I hope you following this. And then like he's about to say some really the main pulp of this whole video he's about to say right now.
And his works are looked into today by all rabbinic authorities or decisive. Some disagree, some will agree, but he has his unique way of explaining the halacha, the law, from its primary sources to its actual application. So in the section on the Code of Civil Law, and there's a law that is found in the Talmud, and this is where the problem arises greatly in our types of community. It's a concept known as Mesira, informing to the government. Now, in Talmudic times, the way it's described, where Jews were, they're not talking about being in a Jewish state or so forth, they were in the diaspora, different parts of the world. Talmudic times are mostly were in Iraq, what is today Iraq, Babylonia, that's where the Babylonian Talmud came from, or places that they were controlled by the Persians or Parthians. Other places were controlled by the Romans. Later on in medieval times, going into Europe, both Eastern Europe and Western Europe, there was all the feudal society. There were all these barons and dukes and others, and many times you didn't even have a central government of law. You had a tyrannical situation of an individual who had power. He had his own men at arms, his mercenaries, and he squeezed taxes out of everybody. And of course, that's the way he did it with the Jews. So at that time, the Jews were always in danger. If they want to know where someone's money is, where his goods, if you informed to them, that was considered a very strong and stringent prohibition to Mesira. Mesira means giving over to literally to a government. So there are prohibitions about that. In fact, there were cases even in Eastern Europe, closer to modern times, which I've read in the contemporary Yiddish literature of that time, how a Moser in a town, in a shtetl, the Jews did away with him because he informed the government about certain things that cost them not only, it wasn't a question of illegal jail terms, but the confiscation of goods, of money, and exile, you name it. So they did away with him. It was not considered a prohibition to get rid of him, take him out, as we would say. So the Aruch HaShulchan says the law, and this is a striking statement, it's clearly there in Siman Shin Peches 388, there in that section of the Aruch HaShulchan, where he says the government, he refers to Malchus Britannia. Remember, he was in Tsarist Russia, early 20th century. But
you heard him say he was in Russia. So like the Jews was doing this, or they do this all over the world. Follow me.
He says in a government like the government of Great Britain, which is a government of laws, has a concept of democracy, he said, in such a place there's no prohibition of Mesira. There's no law prohibiting, informing, or telling the government that someone is committing a crime. This is the point. A very stirring type of thing. He even includes then Tsarist Russia, because at least the Tsarist Russia was officially a government of laws. How does it make a difference? You talk about the wild countries, he says, the governments that were there loosely in Africa or other places where there were warlords and so forth. There was not what we would call today in the democratic country of the United States with a constitutional guarantee of due process. Due process, the law protects people even when they are accused, alleged to be somebody. You can't convict a person in the newspapers or just by accusing him. You can't hold a person certain times. So I'm just mentioning these things. So he's on record. And this is a very controversial thing because others have said, well, we disagree with that. Mesira is at all times, no matter what kind of a government is. So if that's the case, someone knows about child abuse, if you follow the other approach, don't report it to the government. Because what will happen, the abuser will be arrested, he put in jail by the non-Jewish guy, and the Yiddish thinking was in Eastern Europe, and we could understand it. It was them and us. But I always tell people in the United States government is not them, it's us. We are the people that put the elected officials. They're supposed to listen to us.
Are you listening to this? Are you listening to this? I hope you're listening to this. This is not me talking. This is not me. I'm just showing you the files. I'm just showing you the files. Are you listening to this? Who is this? Mind you, this is Rabbi Gedalia Dov Schwartz. He is the head counsel of the Beth Din in Chicago, which is one of the largest Jewish, basically quote unquote, court systems in this whole region. He's telling you that they put the government officials in. You just heard him tell you. This is not me saying this. Are you following me? I'm just giving you the facts. Now I'm gonna go over here real quick. Hold on, man. Hold on. I'm gonna get a little bit more of this. And
have our rights. It's nicht sie, but uns. We are. And therefore, I'm elaborating in that. I hold very strongly of the Aruch HaShulchan's position. If someone knows definitely, quite clearly, just can't make a rumor. You can take revenge. And I know from my sitting on the Bezdin in matrimonial Jewish law There's some cases where there's an argument between the spouses that comes to a divorce. Sometimes the wife or the husband will accuse the other one of abusing a child. It never was known before, but they bring that up. So that's without any reasonable source or out, it's just in order to make be a spiteful statement. But we're talking about a serious situation in the community. Someone knows a neighbor there is abusing a child and knows something to that effect. Well, that person should be reported to the authorities. If someone would ask me today, in fact, I told someone today who was talking about a burglary.
I'm gonna stop this here, and as you can see, this is a very big problem in the Jewish community. Obviously, is that like there's people having sexual abuse and people not reporting it, and they're using this term right here, what he was saying, Mesira, as a way not to, report it, not even to the Jewish council or the Beth Din. You know what I'm saying? So let's read this. Mesira is the action in which one Jew reports the conduct of another Jew to a non-rabbinic authority in a matter and under circumstances forbidden by rabbinic law. It says it right there. So they have a word for this, and they try to embed it into the laws that they create. They say, okay, look, we're putting these people in power. You know what I'm saying? So like we need to embed these concepts into the law. So we are like literally above the law. You following me? This may not necessarily apply to reporting legitimate crimes to a responsible authority, but it does apply to turning over a Jew to an abusive authority or a legitimate one who would punish the criminal in ways as seen as excessive by Jewish community, although excessive punishment by non-Jews may be permissible if a precept of the Torah has been violated. Now, let's see, the term of an individual who commits Mesira is Masur. A person who repeatedly violates this law by informing on his fellow Jews is considered subject to Din Moser, a law of the informer, which is analogous to Din Rodfer, Jewish Jew who is pursuing another Jew to murder him or her. According to Jewish law, such person must be killed by bystander. Okay, so in that both prescribe death for the offender, and according to some circumstances, he may be killed without warning. So if you've been following this video, you go back to the cartoon I showed you when the guy ran up on the lady and he was trying to figure out whether or not he should hand over to the Greeks or not. You know what I'm saying? They have these stories. They have these, you get these degrees. You see what I'm saying? Us as black folk don't have these because they've all been hijacked by Jewish folktale, Jewish stories. You see what I'm saying? So we kind of miss the whole point of this. It's not necessarily about worshiping the Jewish people who are doing this. Is about understanding what it was and understanding what they did. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to share this real quick. This is an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond. It's just called Raymond's First Day. It was episode 315. And like, mind you, this episode, you got to understand, like, Everybody Loves Raymond was one of the greatest, considered one of the greatest shows on television of all time. You know what I'm saying? And he's a Jew. You know what I'm saying? The whole cast is Jews, but they're playing Italians. You know what I'm saying? His name is Ray Romano, but he's playing Ray Barone. You know what I'm saying? And he's playing an Italian, but he's really a Jew. So with this particular episode, his brother Robert started dating a black woman. You know what I'm saying? His partner. And what happened was, you know what I'm saying, she started taking him to these places where it's all black people. You know what I'm saying? So he started getting into black culture, and he changed. He started literally dressing and talking black. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't know what to do with him. You know what I'm saying? He's basically losing himself into the black culture. And this is some straight Jewish shit. Mind you, they use some Italians to deliver this message. It's fucking brilliant. You know what I'm saying? If you understand the writing, you know what I'm saying, of the Jews. So I'm just gonna show you, you know what I'm saying, the scene where at the end, he was basically trying to find himself throughout the whole episode. He was dressing in weird clothes, basically the same thing that you were seeing in other videos. So,
Cop, just you were doing fine with her until you thought you had a...
He started acting black. I ain't gonna show you this whole episode. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to fact the video. You know what I'm saying? But like this episode, kind of like we were talking about earlier with the Maccabees. You know what I'm saying? In that, dude was he was a Jew, but he started acting Greek. You know what I'm saying? And they were basically telling him like, man, you a Jew. Like, you know what I'm saying? Stop dressing in these clothes. Stop. You know what I'm saying? Claim your own identity. You know what I'm saying? It's some Jewish, some very clever Jewish writing here. You know what I'm saying? It's like some Maccabee shit. So and by the end of the episode, which is basically what I'm showing you, he came to that realization. He was like, yeah, the clothes I got on ain't me, and I'm not being myself. So cool. He's sitting down with his brother's breaking up.
I guess that's true.
I speak the truth, home slice.
So, I don't fit in, right?
Fit in. Who fits in?
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? Should we go home?
No, we're here. Let's eat.
Right. Home. The hell's wrong with me?
Now, if you look close, the menus they had a soul food restaurant. If you look close, the menus say soul food on it. They're a soul food restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Pay attention to detail.
We're out. Let's eat. Home, I said.
You know who are an interesting people? The Hasidic Jews.
No, Robert.
What, a person can't make an observation?
Person can't make an observation. This is very careful writing. You have to pick up on detail. You got to pay attention to detail. They put that shit on the episode. You got to pay attention to detail, man. You got to understand Jewish humor. It's another thing I ain't going to talk about today. But one day you get bored. As a matter of fact, let's do that real quick. Real quick. Jewish humor. It's a long tradition dating back to the Torah, the Midrash, Middle East. Generally refers to the more recent stream of verbal, often anecdotal humor. You're saying there's a I can't. It's like basically explaining why a joke is funny. I can't really give it to you, but you definitely want to do some research on Jewish humor because it's like playing the fool almost. And mine is like literally Aries shit, and then like what I'm saying, the Torah, all that stuff is written in the age of Aries, and it's like playing the fool. You ain't stupid, but you playing the fool. It's like entertaining. It's like showing people what you think that they want to see. You see what I'm saying? So they basically break down a lot of good, Jewish humor, and kind of what you saw in that. And there's a lot of underhanded shit going on. They're really playing stupid. They're really genius, but they're playing stupid. Last clip I'm gonna show y'all. You know what I'm saying? I really hope that y'all really getting this. But like the last clip I'm gonna show y'all is this man basically break Khan on anti-Semitic. Was Mr. Farrakhan? Where is it at? Farrakhan explains why Jews hate Jesus. This it right here. Okay, here we go. So let's check this out.
That has told you the truth. Jesus has got the right man. The enemy knew.
Hold on, let me back it up.
No. That the biggest trick that Satan has pulled on the human family is his deceitful way he represented Jesus Christ. Please bear with me now. We can go in a little deeper water, okay? Family, look at this. The enemy knew that Jesus was the man. So all my Christian family, you got the right man. You just don't know yet how to properly represent it. Because the enemy made you think Jesus 2,000 years ago was the Jesus you fell in love with. We know the true history of Jesus. as taught by God himself. Jesus 2,000 years ago was not the Messiah. He was a prophet. He was the last prophet to the Jews. What, Farrakhan? Yeah, I'm coming strong now. He was the last prophet to the house of Israel, the entire white race. They were made to raise hell.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Everywhere they have gone, they have destroyed the peace of the human family. But they decided, when they translated the Bible, to make the work of the Messiah, which is so magnificent, instead of putting it in the right time frame, they made us look 2,000 years ago, and that man was not the Messiah. In fact, he learned that he was 2,000 years too soon to end the civilization of the Jews. Wait now. End the civilization of the Jews? They're the boss. This is their world. Oh, wait a minute. I know a few Jews. They're not. See now, he's an anti-Semite. Stop it. I'm a truth teller.
That's right.
Now look at this. You got some Mexican people in here. How many Mexicans? Raise your hand. All right, Mexico. Now, why aren't the real dark indigenous Mexicans in power? Look at South America. In practically every country, the ruler is white. And he claims he's Peruvian. He's Bolivian. He's Ecuadorian. He's Brazilian. He's Venezuelan. He's Colombia. But go look at the country and look at the dark people that are there. They never reach where their power would allow them to reach, but they're so masterfully manipulated by a mimetic white man. And when I say a mimetic white man, you might as well open up your ears too. A mimetic white man is a white man that takes on, like a chameleon, the language, the culture, the history, the folk music of the place where he goes. So you have Mexicans, but they're Mexican Jews. They run the country. You have German Jews, Polish Jews, Ukrainian Jews, Russian Jews, Lithuanian Jews, Estonian, Latvian, Denmark Jews, Sweden, Norway, Finland Jews. You have Italian Jews. You have French Jews. And everywhere they are, they take on the language, the culture, but they run the money. They run the business. When there's a Jewish holiday, everything gets silent. They're very wise people. So Jesus was their last prophet. prophets don't come because things are right. It's like the sheriff visiting your house. What is he doing there? Something is going on here. That's why the sheriff comes. Well, when God sends a prophet, it's not because you're doing right, because you're doing something wrong that has stirred the anger of God, and now the prophet wants to warn you and correct you to put you back on the right course. So Jesus, listen to me good now, he was no Jew. See, we want them to challenge what we say. And you just shut up and sit down and tell them, come on out and meet Farrakhan in the public. You can't defeat Elijah Muhammad's wisdom. No, you can't. I know all of you got Jewish friends. I got some too. But when you know them and you're not afraid to say who they really are, they move to destroy you. I have a daughter in this house that lives in Mexico and she's educated there and has a Jewish friend. And I guess she was staying overnight, and so she decided to ask the girl, why is it that you don't like Jesus? And the little girl told her, because he called us devils. Now, a lot of you say, he did that? He said that? See, now you go back home, pick up your Bible. All right, scholars, theologians, come on, go get your Bible. Jesus. His mother Mary was an Egyptian woman. And Jesus was a member of the black nation. Just listen to me. And he came to warn the Jews that the end of their time was coming. He thought he was the one that was to end their civilization, and he found out he was 2,000 years too soon. Just follow this now. So what did white folk do? They used Jesus' name to shield a dirty religion under the holy and righteous name of a servant of God. I'm going to prove what I'm saying now. This is theology lesson number 1. Look at this now. Jesus never taught anywhere in the black world. Not the Jesus 2,000 years ago. He was born in Palestine, had to flee out of Palestine to go to Egypt because Herod wanted to kill him at birth. That's what your scripture is telling you. They knew that a prophet was supposed to be born at that time, so they were looking for him. His mother had to flee to Egypt, and when he was between 12 and 14, he learned his mission, and he went back to Palestine and started teaching the Jews. A black man Not black like Brother Hillary. No, or Brother Akbar. But looking more like Nuri. Kind of brownish, you know, but dark enough for them to know he ain't one of them. Now watch what I'm about to do.
Wait a minute.
So the Jews did not like Jesus. Now I'm going to quote your scripture. I didn't bring no book. I didn't need one. Go home. Open up the book. You can start at Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. It don't make no different way to start. So they give you the genealogy of Jesus. And they go back to David. Right? Who was David's father? Jesse. Did David have a son through Bathsheba? What was that boy's name? Solomon said, I'm black, woo, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem. Then Jesus comes into Revelation saying, I am the seed of David, the root of Jesse, the bright and the morning star. We're gonna open that up a little bit. Just bear with me a few more minutes. Look at this now. Jesus being of dark complexion, not real black, like Farrakhan. With a suntan. Now watch this. Look at the argument that Jesus is having with the Jews. It's right in the Bible.
Yeah, come on. Right there. True.
And you haven't paid attention to it. And look at you, Christian. You don't want Muslims in your church. What that Muslim doing in our church? But you bring the rabbi in there all the time. You have never asked Rabbi, why you don't love Jesus? Because he white with money. You go in the synagogue, put on your yarmulke and act like you a Jew. But you never had the strength to ask him, why did you not like Jesus? Watch this now.
Yes, sir.
Recently in Israel, there's a Christian monastery. And the settlers there burnt the door of the monastery. I wonder if you got that picture, Brother Ahmed. I know I was a long time getting to it, but I had to clear some hurdles. You see that picture? That's the door of the Christian monastery in Israel. And guess what the Jews wrote on the monastery? Jesus was a monkey. Should I say it again? Why would they call a righteous servant of God a monkey? When some of you went to the Democratic National Convention, media people were in there eating popcorn, and you were serving, and they called you, say it again, a monkey. I don't believe that. Barack Obama, the man that we sent to the White House with the help of many. Brother, bring up the pictures on the screen of how white people pictured Obama and his wife. Look at it. Can you see it? Oh, hell, let me get closer. Give me a... Oh, shit. Give me a mic. I walked this one off. Put that picture back up. Look, this is Obama. This is Obama. This is Obama. This is Obama and Michelle. Do they look like they look, or are they made to look like they're in the ape family? So the same way they thought about Jesus, who came with the authority of God to straighten them out, they hated Barack, who came with the authority of your vote for him to try to do what Trump is saying he wants to do, make America great. But he...
All right, so I'm going to pause that right there. So I know it's a lot of files. It's a lot of files. A lot of files, a lot of files, a lot of files, a lot of files. And which I really appreciate y'all rocking with me, because I know it's a lot of files. Let me make sure I get this right. All right, so what are we really talking? First, and I want to say too, man, I want to thank Elevated Frequency, J Cam, for leaving a donation in the chat, man. I really appreciate it. Make sure y'all subscribe to Elevated Frequency. He got a lot of good material on his page too. There's a lot of rooted in the same stuff that I'll be talking about. I truly appreciate it. So you see in this here, Farrakhan breaking down, the perception. Now, I do want to say, let me see. Then I know I said that was the last. Let me see. I know that was the last video. Let me see. Ah man, but there was a real quick. I don't know if I don't find it, I might not even play anti-Semitic. Man, what? Okay, let's do like this. History. Let's see if I can find it. Monster Math. Tom and Jerry. Okay, here we go, right here. Don't judge me, I got kids.
German Jews financed Hitler. Right here in America, Loeb and Kuhn, international bankers, financed Hitler. And poor Jews died while big...
Here we go. Right.
Reference to what you call the Holocaust, suggesting whether there was a Holocaust. And the whole reference to big Jews and little Jews and the emphasis you use, why wouldn't you say that's anti-Semitic?
The question is it truth?
Hold on, let me do like this. Let's do this. And then let's do this. And then let's do this.
If it is truth, then it is not anti-Semitic, it is truth. My problem with the Jewish community is that most of the people feel, or the Jewish people feel, that if you criticize any act of Jews, that is anti-Semitic. If I criticize Arabs, if I criticize the government of the United States, if I criticize white people or my own black people, I'm not considered anti-black, anti-Arab. Why should anybody who criticizes Jewish behavior that ill affects black people and their pursuit of happiness be considered anti-Semitic? Last week, Orthodox Jews made the statement that Reform and conservative Jews are off the page of Judaism. I saw it not in the New York Times, but I saw it in the Chicago papers, just a little writing, but nobody called them anti-Semitic. But if I said that Reform Jews or conservative Jews or those that do not follow the laws, commandments, and statutes given by God to the prophets of Israel are not really Jews, then I'm considered anti-Semitic. I am not.
Do you hear what he's saying? He's basically saying that, like, you know, what I was saying from the beginning of this video, and that, like, Jews be beefing with each other as far as their belief system. You see what I'm saying? So, like, they have quote-unquote anti-Semitic approaches as well. I mean, he had a whole other video where he really broke this down real good. He was naming all of the politicians who ever been called anti-Semitic. You know what I'm saying? He was basically saying Jesus Christ is an anti-Semitic. So, you know, to really embrace Christ, to really be a Christian, you really have to be a revolutionary. And then, like, you really have to understand, like, the nature of what Christ was up against. You see what I'm saying? And then look at your situation and really ask yourself, are you a real Christian? You know what I'm saying? Christ was a real revolutionary. Christ was not, you know, passive. Christ spoke a doctrine of of the coming of a new age. You know, that was real Christian, you know, concepts. You know, that's why I really see the gospel that Farrakhan preaches in certain circumstances is more Christian than traditional Christian. I just want to say, for the record, you know, we are blending three different religions all together. You see, Farrakhan is Islam. You know, so we're talking about Christianity, we're also talking about Judaism. So, like, you know, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of files in this information, but you really have to explore the totality of really what's going on. You got to look at it from all perspectives, and that's really what I wanted to give you in this video. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty much gonna wrap it up. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna play this last little clip. But
not anti-Semitic. I do not hate Jewish people. I hate actions of any people, including my own, that are evil and are obstructive to justice, freedom, and equity.
Do you believe there was a Holocaust in which 6 million Jews perished?
Of course I believe that Jews perished in Germany. And the same Jews that perished in Germany, while the Pope Pius XII looked the other way and the government of America looked the other way, now there is reconciliation between Jews and Catholics and the government of the United States. What is wrong with reconciliation between those who looked the other way when my fathers were being brought into America as slaves and to this very moment have not received justice? I think atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility should be the watchword for this time, and I'm willing to sit down with any who wish to discuss atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility.
Would you be willing to retract or apologize for some of the things you said?
If in any dialogue I can be shown to be in error, I would most surely apologize. But you cannot put me off in a corner and not dialogue with me and then say to me, Farrakhan speaks words that are hateful. If I can defend every word that I speak, and every word that I speak is truth, then I have nothing to apologize for. But if in a dialogue you can show me where I am in error, I am not a proud man. I will humble myself and go before the world and apologize. But now the burden is, will you show me where I am wrong?
I went up on the internet last night, www.noi, nationofislam.org, and found an essay written by one of your followers, and it said the following: the Jews' awesome control over American society and government. All presidents since Franklin Roosevelt, 1932, are controlled by Jews. Do you believe that?
I believe that for the small numbers.
Pause. I just want to say, you hear the question he just asked on how they making Farrakhan sound ridiculous. When I just showed you the clip, of the lead rabbi in this whole region saying that they put the government in office. I just showed you the clip. But they make it sound ridiculous. You see what I'm saying? This is how Jews unify, even though they got so many different belief sects, they will unify against Farrakhan. They will unify against Christ. They will unify against what they call anti-Semitism. You see what I'm saying? So, my job here, like whether or not it's a lot of people that hate Farrakhan. Like, a lot of people believe Farrakhan killed Malcolm X, and they believe Farrakhan's a piece of shit. You see what I'm saying? And they're like, you can hate Farrakhan, you can hate Judaism, you can hate Christian. It's a lot of different beliefs on my page. People follow all different types of religious codes, and you know what I'm saying. But like, my job is to give you a bird's eye view, and then like, you know what I'm saying. No matter what did I do? I came out, gave you the file. You see what I'm saying? And then like, I'm just showing you how it look from when you step all the way back and get the big picture. You see what I'm saying? That's what this file is designed to do. So I'm gonna finish this up, and then we're gonna end this video.
Of Jewish people in the United States, they exercise a tremendous amount of influence on the affairs of government. Right now, there is a tremendous problem in the Middle East, a very grave problem. I do not think that President Clinton is handling his role in the most responsible manner. As you know, East Jerusalem was under Palestinian control until the year 1967. After the Six-Day War, it was annexed by Israel. It is part of ongoing negotiations. Now, for Netanyahu to say he wishes to build now in East Jerusalem, and the world says he shouldn't do this. And since he said he would build and started moving on that, violence has erupted and the peace process has been brought to a halt. Mr. President, Mr. Clinton, instead of exercising the strength of a man whose country contributes at least $4 billion every year to the state of Israel, America has influence in Israel, but is not using that influence in a constructive way, but rather pays lip service to the Palestinians while she bows to the dictates of Netanyahu and the strong political Jewish lobby.
Mr. Farrakhan, you seem to be suggesting that what you told Henry Louis Gates in New Yorker, you still believe there's a small Jewish cabal that meets on Park Avenue or Hollywood and tries to shape our culture.
I don't know why you would put that on me. I was quoting a Jewish movie producer in Jamaica producing the movie Lost in the Stars, and it was that Jewish producer who told me this. I didn't ask him. He mentioned this to me.
This is what you said, sir.
This is the same. Now you see, this is why I played this video, and they're like, I'm just giving you the file. This is the same thing, like, you're saying, like, I don't really think that I'll get that much traffic on this page anyway. You should say most people don't think about most of the shit that I'm talking about. You should say, so like, I don't think I'm gonna get attacked by Jews, but like, I'm just giving you the files. But I can already see how like even certain Christians will look at me a certain way, like, okay, what, you don't believe that Christ is Christ, or you don't believe in Christianity? It's like, this is where your mind goes. It's like, Joe, that's not the point of this video. It's like, you got to understand, like, your mind only has certain paths that it can even go down because it's been formulated by this type of culture. So it's like, Joe, don't miss the whole point of this video. The whole point of this video is to really get you to look at it from the Jewish narrative. And that, like, they don't believe in Christ. They come into the culture. They create our culture. They give us the language. They give us our moral. You know what I'm saying? This is why they say they're the chosen people. And they're like, they look at us kind of like fools. This is what they call it, Gentiles. They look at us as like they stupid. They look at us like we stupid, basically. You see what I'm saying? If you really a Jew, at some point you're gonna have to see the rest of the world is stupid. It kind of forces you to polarize yourself like that. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of files in this video. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, what I want you to get more any perspective is just look at it from the Jewish perspective. Look at it from the Maccabee perspective. And then look at your situation. You know what I'm saying? And ask yourself, you know what I'm saying, if you claim to be a Christian, are you a real Christian? Are you really going up against the people that hated Christ? Are you really understanding the what Christ did in his time and how that relates to your time? You know what I'm saying? Like, to really, really, really be Christian. You know what I'm saying? Paul has a concept called Jesus in his own land, which is basically saying that, you know, like what you saw in that courtroom, and that Jesus wasn't accepted by his own people. You know what I'm saying? He was like actually accepted by outside influence. You know what I'm saying? So, you want to take this into consideration, looking at your situation, and then like, there's a lot of Christs that have come and gone. You know what I'm saying? That have lived and died in the name of Christ and what he believed in. You know what I'm saying? So, that's really what we talk about here is the narrative. It's the word. It's the way you tell the story. It's not necessarily Christ himself. It's the living Christ, the Christ consciousness, the way Christ reveals himself in today's time. It's a universe. Like the whole Bible is really a universe trying to, reveal itself in today's time. So you got to really get the bigger picture of what's going on here, man. That's really the point of this video. You know what I'm saying? So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I appreciate the donation. You know what I'm saying? For Elevator Freaks, make sure you subscribe to his channel too as well. Channel J Can. And you know what I'm saying? Everybody who tuned in, I truly appreciate it. I really hope you learned something. And like I said, the goal of this video is not to be anti-Jewish. It's actually get you to look at the world from a Jewish perspective. All right. So hope you enjoyed it. And on that note, I'm gonna get out of here and go smoke and play with my kids. All right. I'm out of here. You did.